Hey guys, Chaps here, and we had another developer stream recently. Sorry for the delay on this recap, I've been kind of busy. Schwartz, Jess, and I had a meetup for the first time in almost 4 years, so I was pretty busy planning that. Oh, and I got married, so I guess there's that. Anyways, because of the delay, I'll keep this one pretty short. So, here we go.
I'm Michael Shannon, the lead PvE designer on Gears 5.
And I'm TC Sera, you know me, and we actually have a special surprise for everyone out there too, who are expecting 1 or maybe 2 TC people. We have a third. Mitchell Denay from our live team is also here. You want to say hi, Mitchell?
Hello, nice to be here.
Who's also here because you love PvE, basically.
I do love PvE. It's the first area I started on when I joined up the Coalition.
How has the feedback been for Nexus CH, and are you happy with how it's been received?
Yeah, like for me, I'm pretty happy with how it's been received. Like I knew that people would be pretty excited to see the Locust come back, because like for me, I'm just sort of a Gears fan making what I want to see in the game. So I'm really happy that people are also happy to see that. I was a little worried about the reaction to the bosses, because I didn't want what I couldn't do to stop me from doing what I could do. I know when people hear about sort of the Locust bosses, like their imaginations run wild, like, oh, is Mira gonna have like, you know, the giant beast and flying around, and like, is Rom gonna have the krill? And like obviously for me, like that wasn't something that I had the capacity to do at this point in time, but I didn't want that to stop me from creating something cool and special for the fans. So.
What other enemy combat roles would you like to see for the Swarm and DBs? And you know what, this is going to be a question put out to both of you. What would you like to see?
Yeah, I guess I could go first. So for me, really getting, what I'm really interested in seeing is sort of like a Mauler type unit. I know we have the Warden, but the Warden is, it's a little more technical to kill the Warden than it is to kill the Mauler. So what's great about the Mauler is you can kind of bring him in quite frequently, and he sort of acts as sort of like this tank unit for the Locust that really takes a lot of the attention away from the other units and gives them a chance to kind of advance. When Horde kind of falls apart, when like you can just sort of like, it's just a shooting gallery and everyone's just, it's really easy to pick off the units. But what's great about the Mauler is that he's such a big threat for so long that the team really has to focus him down, right? So, and that gives the other units space to kind of move up, which I love.
He had another great feature with the shield. You could
yeah, and then being able to take, obviously, yeah, like obviously taking the shield and like, you know, all the utility that brought to Gears 2 Horde and also Gears 3 as well, just made this incredibly dynamic enemy that was just so cool.
And then you get the Beast Riders jumping over the shields, and it's just hectic.
Yeah. What would you like to see, Mitchell?
Oh man, definitely more like aerial denial, because if you can run around like the Horde map, like we make it so easy to run around because a lot of the maps are very versus centric, right? So if we had more of a Horde like kind of area denial that made, you know, like you said before with the other boss, it's kind of escaping me right now, but the one you brought up before, Mike.
Oh, the Mauler?
The
Gunker.
The Gunker. If we had something like the Gunker, like you said, where it was able to kind of deny a certain area and you had to move around that would be lots of fun.
Yeah.
As a PvE designer, what are the larger conversations like with the campaign designers? What type of problems do you solve together?
Sure.
So it sounds like not necessarily a big thing, but like what kind of stuff have you all worked together to deal in the design of these things? Yeah,
that's a really great question. So just to give a little context for people that may not know me from previous streams and stuff like that. So I was previously a level designer on Gears 5 for pretty much the entirety of the development, and I came on sort of to the PvE side around when Operation 2 was sort of out. So a lot of the conversations that our PvE team had with the campaign designers sort of happened before my time, and that was around sort of like how the different bosses and different enemy types would sort of work in Horde and Escape. You know, a lot of conversations with sort of like the AI team and around sort of like the way that the enemy units work, and sort of like making sure that the way that that enemies are tuned works for both modes. So also works for a campaign and also works for Horde and Escape. I did spend some time sort of working with some of the guys on the campaign side around sort of the Walkatoo. So when we were bringing in the Walkatoo boss to Horde, we had like a whole bunch of play tests, and we were kind of giving them feedback around like, oh, like, does this VFX seem like it's doing damage, and like, is this feedback working, and you know, is it doing enough damage, is it attacking enough to keep 5 players busy, stuff like that. But outside of that, we haven't really been working with them recently, but in the future, there's a lot of we're trying to get all of the designers in the whole studio to work together more. So I'm really looking forward to that.
What motivates you as a developer? And you know what? I think it's actually a great question for both, because for people who maybe missed the introduction, Mitchell is on our live team as well and works for us. So we'll start. Whichever one of you wants to start. What motivates you?
Yeah, Mitchell, do you want to grab it first?
Oh, how kind of you. So what motivates me? Well, I'm just a QA lead for live, so I just manage the team, and I manage the updates that go out, and I make sure that everything looks, you know, as well as we can make it, as you know, with the team that we have. Just getting somebody up. Oh no. So what I really like is I love playing with people, and I love being able to make a story or a world that people can kind of just like immerse themselves in. And I kind of fell in love with Gears just because of the amazing scenes, the camaraderie between the characters, and just like the overall like overhyped bro moments. And I started playing when I was in like elementary school. Shh, don't tell anybody because it's a mature game.
I'll say nothing. I think I played a few mature games far too young.
And so after like all those years of playing it with friends, staying up late, you know, playing Horde, trying to get to 50 as much as we could, it's just nice to be able to join everybody else who loves this game and to create moments for people that were like me when I was younger. But yeah, that's why I do it right now.
Yeah, so for me, before I worked here, I was a pretty big Gears fan. So like, you know, pretty much played Gears from like the day it came out. And I pretty much like entered the game industry specifically because I loved Gears so much. And I was really fortunate that, like out of just, I don't know, just sheer luck, like, you know, Gears moved from North Carolina, from the States to Vancouver.
For sure.
And like when that happened, I was like, "Oh my god, that's insane." So you know, then I basically just spent all my time just trying to like one get a job here, but then also do the best I can, because for me, like, you know, Gears has always been so magical for me, like, and I wanted to do everything that I could to keep that magic going, even with the new studio. So. Like for me, that's really important, because like when I was sort of playing Gears 1 and 2 and like in 3 and stuff, you know, I was always like counting on like that next release to be awesome, right? Because I love Gears so much. So
what's going to happen next in the story?
Yeah, and like even like things like for me, like you know, the Gears 3 beta was like a really like magical time for a lot of Gears fans, I think. Like, and you know, making sure that, you know, moments like that can still happen for Gears fans and stuff like that. So that's what motivates me.
Seeing as you're a great map designer, they put that in there.
Thank you.
But we can agree.
I have to agree as well.
Right? Yeah. I was wondering what your favorite Gears of War map is and why.
Yeah, no, I'd love to answer that question. So obviously, I'm not going to pick any of my maps. I'll pick I'll pick a different map.
I am the best map maker.
So for me, my answer is probably going to be Old Town from Gears of War 3, for a few different reasons. So the first reason was that it was the first map that I played when I was playing the Gears of War 3 beta, and Old Town, the way that it was sort of presented in Gears 3 was just visually so different from like any other Gears map before it. Like at that point, playing Gears 1 and 2, like most maps were like, it was Ephira, like it was like desaturated ruins, like, Gothic architecture. And seeing Old Town for the first time, I was like, wow, like, like this looks so different. This like proves that like, it was exciting because it was like, okay, like Gears is like exploring like different like, environments and different places. And then, but on top of the visuals, it was also such a different map from a layout, right? Because like, I loved it that it dared to try like that sort of like, one's like the vertical, like the change in the verticality where like one side started on the bottom and one side started on the top. I know that, Escalation did that previously, but like the way that it was done in Old Town was just like so well done in my opinion. And like all the different unique fighting areas in Old Town were really fun too. So I don't know, like for me, it's just like a really great map. I just love the spaces. I love the vibe. Yeah.
I've definitely got to go with Sandbar in Gears 3. That's my favorite map. I'm definitely a Horde player, so the huge area that you have to play around with and kind of kite enemies and deal with different ways. Like you could set up shields on like the way that the sand comes up in the area, because like right in the middle of the map there's that huge kind of peak that you can sit up top of and create a base if you want to in Horde. And I just loved kind of tunneling up in that tall area and shooting drones from the top and getting the Hammer of Dawn and using a mortar. I just like just tunneling in, seeing how far we could take it before we get overrun. That was always some good times for me.
I'm probably one of the new ones that I actually like from Gears 5, Reactor. I love playing on Reactor so much when I get to. I enjoy getting to set up the base there in Horde, so that's for me. So there you have a few generations of maps.
Sure.
On a previous stream, it was mentioned that the community's feedback around single map events had been heard, and that you'd work to have new events playable on more or all maps. Why was Nexus Siege, the most recent event, stuck to only one map?
Yeah, so I can answer that one. So when we create really anything in the game, but also events, there's quite a long lead time on that, right? So even though we had gotten that feedback around sort of like, hey, can you guys put more maps into the events for Escape from Kadar? At that point, like Nexus Siege was already sort of like in the pipe, right? So that was something that we received that feedback, and I hear that feedback, and the next few events are going to be on many more maps. But Nexus Siege was kind of already locked in, so that was sort of like the experience we were going for with Nexus Siege, and that's just sort of like the way that it kind of panned out. But we definitely hear that feedback.
Given you use Mulcher Scion AI on Ram as a Horde boss, would you consider using Mulcher Scion AI on the Grinder model? Or Boomshot Scion AI on the Boomer model?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it's something that I would have not hesitated to do if I could. The answer is the Boomer has a different uses different animations. So the Boomer is obviously, like, as you know, like very, very different from a Scion. Like a Boomer is like kind of like fat, like really like large, and like their animations that they use to move around and shoot and stuff like that are just totally different from a Scion. So if I took those animations and tried to use the Boomer with them, it would look very deformed and not very natural. So the way to do the Boomer properly would be to actually do the animations, the actual Boomer animations, which for me I didn't have the resources to do. But it is something that obviously I would have loved to have Boomers, Tickers, Cantuses, everything in here. But what you're seeing in Nexus Siege is basically what I was able to achieve on my own. So,
what do you think about replacing weapons in regular Horde to certain enemies, such like Lancer for Imagos, just like in campaign, and Boltic for Hunters, Grenadiers?
As in, like, changing it in the custom game?
Seems like that. That's the whole question. So
yeah, so
from what's being said.
So obviously those weapons have been missing from Horde. We haven't had an enemy using a Boltok. We haven't had an enemy using a Lancer. That's why I made this. Like that's why I brought these guys in. So
the need.
Yeah. So I guess I'll go ahead and say it. Like, they will be coming to Horde eventually. When that time is going to be a surprise. We're going to announce that here, but they will eventually make their way into Horde.
I see in Nexus Siege, the fact that the Lambent and Locust fight is fantastic. I agree, it's so good to watch sometimes. Just sit back and like, oh yeah, go ahead. Unfortunately, the enemies are able to spawn in the same location. This makes it so that we frequently just see two enemies standing back in a spawn corner fighting rather than naturally meeting and engaging in the middle of the match. Is there anything that can be done to address this?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. It's actually one of the things that I was agonizing over before this mode came out. Because the Lambent and the Locust actually fighting each other was one of the last things to come in for this mode. It was a very late bug fix that came in, so we had already done the majority of our play testing. So that sort of came in, and then we noticed they're spawning really close to each other, and they're kind of fighting immediately. And I had this struggle where I was like, okay, is this still what I want to release? Do I want to release this the way like this, even though they're spawning on top of the Locust? I decided to do it because I think people would have really liked to see the Lambent and the Locust fight, and so far there's been nothing but positive feedback around that. So it is something that we are aware of and that we are fixing. So hopefully when they make it to prime time, maybe in Horde, that bug will be resolved.
And that's basically it for the recap. Again, sorry for not having much commentary in there this week. Hopefully we'll be back to normal soon. Speaking of which, I have a few discussion panels that I'm working on setting up, so make sure to keep an eye out for those in the future. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll catch you next time.